Steve asked me to play on his team back then, which was Team XXX.
XXX, wait, pause. Does that mean what I think it means? If you're parents to a 16-year-old and you go on vacation and you let them use the house, you're not supposed to come home 2 days early, right?
Right.
I think that's more on them.
If we got relegated, we were gonna have to pay an extra $2 million in order to get into the LCS on top of the LCS fee. You brought your popcorn too.
So the biggest difference between 2025 and the early 2000s esports is one, we're all young.
Early 2000s esports is a very fun time for me. It's a fun memory. I think things were so real and genuine.
The era before esports back then was definitely the Wild Wild West. In Smash, we call it grassroots.
Nobody even knew that esports would become something that you could even have a career for. I was running Team Liquid tournaments when I was in law school. It really hurt my GPA, to be perfectly honest with you, but nobody even had an idea of what it was going to become.
It was magical in the sense that it was wide open.
Remember him?
Teams were doing it different ways.
That's our old CFO.
I don't even know if you guys have gaming houses anymore, but we were sticking, 19 and 20-year-old kids in houses and or in mansions in some cases, and hosting parties. It was a really special time that I wish it had gone on a little bit longer. It was a lot of fun.
Everyone was doing things themselves. We'd be lugging CRTs to whatever venue would have us for pennies on the dollar.
It was the Blockbuster, real close to home, and they'd offer these competitions. They had different games, and different kids would come in, and depending how far they got on the game, I think each Mark and Steve won one each.
And all the Blockbuster tournaments I used to win as kids, and I would always come in last place, and he would come in first place, and he would always brag to me how good he was. It was so frustrating.
Let's see, a story of the early days of Victor that doesn't get him in trouble either. The first few times I played against, it was so annoying. Like, he had these weird strategies, and I was losing. And he came to Brood War, and he used to play vanilla StarCraft way longer than most other people. And he came to Brood War, and I was like, oh, this is that guy from vanilla StarCraft. I'm sure I'll just beat him. And he did something unconventional. I thought it was so annoying. And then I don't know, but he was so nice. It's impossible to not like him.
There was no streams. The audience right there. The viewership of tournaments was 40 people, and it wasn't 40 on the website. It was 40 human beings crowded around a CRT, and hopefully you were playing on a big enough one without faded colors or a broken, cracked screen with audio.
For me, it was just so much fun. It wasn't a business yet. There was no future horizon of where it was going to go. You were just in the moment, just realizing this is the only thing I want to do. And I think that feeling, especially for myself, when I traveled to Korea, probably never had that much fun in the moment, just enjoying all of it.
Mm-hmm. And you were competing then, right?
I was competing, yes, yeah. I played on television in Korea. Had a really good time.
That's pretty cool. How good were you?
I think outside of Korea, I think very good. I think there's a period of maybe 1 to 2 years where I would be arguably the best player outside of Korea. Uh-huh. And of course, the Koreans dominated the top 50, maybe even top 100. Outside of Korea, pretty good.
What did you mean?
Inside of Korea, I was a Protoss player. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. The easier race.
I was a Zerg main, so.
Yeah. It was more difficult.
Yeah, more difficult. That's cool.
I do think Protoss as a race, at least in StarCraft 1, I think had more opportunity for unconventional strategies, a little bit less reliant on the mechanics, a little bit more reliant on the strategies you would choose to play.
Like cannon rushing?
Also, yeah. For me, for sure. I was able to play a macro game, but I always felt how in poker there's GTO now.
Yeah.
GTO, it means you have to mix up your strategies to keep people guessing. Mm-hmm. That's what I did in StarCraft. Sometimes I would cheese, sometimes I would all in, then I would play a macro game. Mm-hmm. Because then if you play a macro game and they have to defend for everything, you're in an advantage, right? Mm-hmm. So I always mixed it up to the great frustration of a lot
opponents?
of practice partners and everyone.
This is when they would sell the AOL.com CDs at the Blockbuster, so you could get free internet, with your external modem. But yeah, they used to have competitions, or now I understand the developers of those games were basically selling marketing campaigns to Blockbuster so that they would advertise those games in the store, and then it was basically you'd race to get the high score by playing the game.
You played any game. It's not like one specific.
It wasn't. It was basically the game of the month, because the developer was basically brokering a marketing campaign with Blockbusters nationwide to sell those Nintendo games. And so you'd go in and you would just do a playthrough for a certain amount of time to try to get the highest score possible in the game. There was one in particular, this is a very, very long time ago, again, before the internet. You remember a game called NBA Jam? Did you ever play that? It was on Nintendo.
Does not ring a bell.
No.
I only played one game, it's StarCraft, pretty much. So.
Okay, so you weren't a console player at all?
No.
Okay, so it was on Nintendo, and there was an NBA Jam competition, and so ended up playing that and qualifying, and then we went to an event at MLG, and there was hundreds of kids there, and we played in an NBA Jam competition.
I didn't realize you were so all around.
Yeah, I guess. I don't know. I think I was fascinated by just competing at video games, like just trying to be as good as possible, like that kind of like min-maxing of a particular game. Like I was obsessed with that, aspect, whether it was like my dad's Centipede, because he had like a Centipede in our basement, or Donkey Kong, like it was just optimizing and trying to get the high score. And I was kind of obsessed with all that.
It was very different. Like from the moment like I found StarCraft, so 1999 or around that time, I didn't play anything different. Like for 5 years straight, I touched one game that was only StarCraft, no other games at all. Just like when I loaded StarCraft, I played my first games. I never played single player. I just went straight onto Battle.net and played multiplayer from day one. It just felt like that's everything I want to do. It was just such a wonderful experience, and I really enjoyed the game. I mean, I still believe it's the best game of all time. That's my opinion. But so that would have drawn me to it. But if I think about it now, I actually think for a long time I underestimated the community, right? So whenever I came home from school, I was like, I'm gonna log in again. And you had your friend list, and you found like your shared channels, and then you were chatting half the time, or you were watching other people play half of the time, actually. And so I think it was the game, but also the community was really important for me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I remember that too. It was a great community. I mean, it was the birth of the internet.
Yeah.
Right? It was the first real game you could play multiplayer, right? And so it was about connection with others, and it wasn't just about playing a single player game anymore. So you got to enjoy it with others and share that experience.
They don't really make that interface anymore, right? Where if you were on Battle.net, your entire screen was essentially like chat and friend list.
Yeah.
And that's it.
Yeah.
There's no like games being promoted or new stuff being thrown your way or digital items. Like it's just a community that's on your screen. That was different.
It was me and 4 Ditch people. We played StarCraft together. That was what it was for the first 4 years. If you fast forward 4 more years, then Team Liquid has become like more of a website thing.
I think the forum from Team Liquid is massive, because I think that it gave people sort of a home to speak about, and it was mostly StarCraft based back then, but that was also one of the most talked about games, and I really think it laid a foundation for a gigantic community.
We were staying up to 4 a.m. trying to watch tournaments in Korea, and we couldn't even watch it at the time. I think one person had a 180p stream. We would just all be refreshing a forum site and that person would be giving us text updates.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, for 10 years.
None of us really had any ambition to do this for money or fame, because that was not really a thing. So what I miss a little bit from that time is that it was very passion driven. Everybody that was in it for the love.
Like I never learned how to, lead a team or run a company or build anything from the ground up until TL. And we had an organization that was all volunteers. It was tricky at times, but honestly kind of amazing what we did. It really shows that if you care about something, the product will be something amazing.
Yeah, I mean, what Ken is talking about there was now it seems like a pretty crazy period, but like the first 10 years of Liquid were just voluntary, right? Between 2000 and 2010, I think at its peak, the website had like 200 active volunteers. It's like a full pyramid of staffing infrastructure, different levels, people reporting into other people. And we're not talking about like some dormant volunteers that show up every now and then, but like people actively writing, editing, like moderating, keeping calendars up. And all of these people were some of the brightest that I've ever worked with. It wasn't like staff who had nothing better to do. It was like people that are, like he was studying to be a lawyer. Jesse back then was studying to become a math PhD, right? Super bright individuals that just felt like Broodwar is amazing and I'm going to contribute. And it was a pretty special time.
Predominantly, what was the site doing? It was like esports kind of matches and news and results.
At its core, you would say it's covering a Korean Broodwar, right? Like it's writing about the matches there. The calendar is all these matches, like when they're coming up and when they're happening, people are talking about it. But I would actually say the non-Broodwar part of the site ended up being much bigger than just the competitive part. People were talking about, they had blogs and talking about personal life. Could be about politics, about war, about dating. Like it actually became a full community where people were curious about each other's lives, supporting each other with advice, like sharing thoughts, discussion, debate. It became much more than just Broodwar, but I think Broodwar was really at its core.
What's what everybody kind of associated as a connectiveness, but then also a place where you could chat and discuss. And I mean, that was the age then. It was like a lot of forums and philosophical discussions and just getting outside of your bubble. I mean, I remember that from like growing up in Leesburg. It was like my way of having a voice or hearing opinions outside of this little town in Virginia was like, oh, I can go and read in forums.
For sure. And I mean, I have 20,000 posts on the forum, and they're not like 140 character posts. They're like real posts, real thoughts. You know,
the energy on Team Liquid was really good, and there's one thing that I distinctively remember. When I talked to Victor, because at first it was just, a forum, right? It was just a message board pretty much. And I remember there was just one poster that posted a lot, but it was a lot and a little bit toxic sometimes. And then Victor decided to just ban him. And I just asked him, like, he's one of the main drivers of traffic, right? And you're trying to start up a message board. And then Victor said, if this is the kind of person I'm going to base my community on, then I'd rather not do it.
It was the first time I felt like, okay, so if we are honest and treat people with respect and adhere to our promises and all that kind of stuff, it will work out in the end. And that's the first time that I actually believed that.
The forum days, at least for me, was more around like ESL when they were running all of their events. They were called Go for Lols in League of Legends. You would play every Sunday against a bunch of other teams, and the winner would get $20, and you had to split that with 5 people. So,
that's a good income.
Yeah, good way to spend your Sunday. But there was that. There was the TSM forums when TSM was basically running League of Legends events before Riot organized and started running their own stuff. And I mean, I always found that it was a place to communicate, sit down and read, express yourself, hear other people's diverse thoughts and opinions. And that was that era that I remember too.
Do you ever miss those days of like just being so competitively involved, always every day, like trying to be better at the game or whatever game you were passionate about at that moment in time? Do you ever miss that?
Oh, of course, yeah. I mean, there were days where I was like, oh my gosh, if I could just like, rub a magic genie bottle or something like that and have a wish, it would be like, I would wish to be the best League of Legends player for the next 3 years or 4 years, just to go back to it and like obsess about the game, because it's that competitiveness. I mean, I'm sure for you too, right? Like it's so fun.
Yeah. What I tend to think about it is like I wouldn't trade like my job and this role and what we are trying to accomplish for anything. I think the goals that we have are amazing, but in terms of like pure like day-to-day enjoyment, nothing beat like just playing the game all day, just trying to get better. I think it was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Victor and I actually first met in a summer meetup that became a tradition afterwards, when his parents would go on vacation and Victor no longer wanted to come with them. maybe because he was a little bit too old, maybe because he just wanted to grind StarCraft. He started inviting some friends that, hung out with him a lot on Battle.net. So that would be like Liquid Overall, Liquid Drone. I was there, Joy, one of the founders of Team Liquid. And then we just meet up at his house and play StarCraft for 2 weeks and each format.
I mean, I was just a StarCraft player.
Okay, so that's Drone. He's one of the earliest Team Liquid members, right? So when I really founded Team Liquid as a clan, the first few members, like 4 or 5 or so, they were people I knew really well on Battle.net, and they were my online friends. And so I think he's one of maybe the most important, like very early Team Liquid clan members that we've had.
I think for the first couple of years of Team Liquid's existence, it was a pretty small, tightly knit team.
There was one funny story where we stayed over at his house, and obviously we'd eat a lot of junk food and play a lot of StarCraft.
This is going to be terrible.
Football with his real life friends. And then his parents came home 2 days early, and there were so many garbage bags just stacked against the window outside of the living room, because Victor had a brilliant idea. He said, like, listen, we can make this a positive, right? We make sure that we only dump the garbage once, so that's one trip, so that's great. But then if we stack them against the window, it blocks out sunlight. It can actually stay up longer. That's what Victor was like.
I don't know that's true. If your parents to a 16-year-old and you go on vacation and you let them use the house, you're not supposed to come home 2 days early, right?
Right.
I think that's more on them. Well, we did that probably 3 or 4 years in a row every time my parents went on summer holiday. So we basically like a StarCraft Brute War based LAN party for 2 weeks straight with some of the best players outside of Korea, so in the world, but playing all day, all night. I mean, they were some of the greatest times of my life. It was a lot of fun, just thinking of it. But we would also go out for football, like when the sun was shining. It wasn't only StarCraft, it was mostly StarCraft.
Personally, I was mostly frequenting the non-Korean scene, not paying that close attention to the Korean scene. But of course, when Victor ended up moving to Korea, that changed.
Oh my God, watching Victor compete in Korea, that was so amazing, because then you had the pro versus amateur series, and Victor was the only one that was just beating pros. And I remember they were talking about, he was sitting there and he had a NHL shirt on, and he was just and he played Jinam, I believe, who had like an incredible Zerg versus Protoss, and he was just beating him, and it was just incredible to see. So watching that was unreal.
I guess after I traveled to Korea, I was part of a team called the AMD Dream Team. We had a manager. The manager was always trying to get us like on television, playing show matches, joining tournaments, like arranging for your professional license, right? That kind of work. And at some point, he had gotten me the opportunity to play live on television against a established professional player called Jinam. I'm not sure if he underestimated me, but I took it very seriously. I prepared for him. I prepared for the exact map that we were playing on, and I think that might have been my first win on television.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah. So I think one of the more special matches that I played in Korea was the match against Zelos. So this was part of a team league concept. So it was our team against another professional Korean pro team. And I was matched up against Zelos on a very specific map again, and I think Zelos probably was maybe a top 5 Terran back then, and he was still very young, so he was he was like tipped to become maybe one of the very, very best Terrans, one of the very best players in the world, but he was already very good. And I managed to beat him in a drawn-out macro game. No cheese this time. And,
those require the hardest skill. Anytime any game went late, I knew I was just going to lose.
No, I made it work that game, and I think that might be the one game that I'm most proud of.
Was it just a best of one?
It's just a best of one. Yeah, it's just a best of one.
Brood War back then, you had a lot of best of one competitions, maybe best of 3. You could get unlucky or just have a tiny slip up, and that could be the deciding factor in whether you won or lost the game. And I do remember there was a game against some upcoming Terran player where I was expecting Victor to win because it was really good against Terran. And then he just lost quickly. And after that,
that's
I think he went home shortly after.
So after being in Korea, like there's these qualifiers for the biggest tournaments, and they're played on television starting like round of 32 or round of 24 or something. And I qualified to it, which means that you're already beating a gigantic field of like Koreans trying to qualify.
Yeah.
So I made it there, which in hindsight was like pretty decent. And I felt good actually. I felt like in pretty good shape. Yeah, but I think that's the match where he mentioned like I just got crushed in like 10 minutes. It was brutal. Like I think he all-in me or something. I was like depressing.
And it wasn't a qualification match. It was like
It was on TV. Yeah, it was on TV.
TV.
Yeah, in the space suit and like live on national television.
Wow.
The final two matches that were technically they were maybe the most important because now you're playing the biggest event on television, starting in the round of I think 32, which represents maybe the biggest opportunity if you go on a run. So that was definitely very disappointing. I lost in that quick PVT match, but I also lost a quick PVZ right after. So definitely remember coming with like big expectations and it doesn't work out, and I was super bummed out about it. But you know, you live and you move on.
Yeah, it's part of the competition.
Yep.
You know.
Yeah.
Starting from the very beginning, Victor was always very, I used the word responsible about him yesterday, and he didn't like that, but sorry, Victor. I think you're responsible.
Victor told me,
not so boring.
I found a video game that you can make good money in. So I didn't even look at it as a card game, right? And now I've been a professional poker player for 20 years. So people still, you know, they love the old stories about like, oh, my grandfather taught me at the kitchen table, you know, and they let me get the drinks and stuff. Now, I got introduced to it through esports. And then Victor said that I believe he was at WCG and then Elke and Soft, they were playing poker. And Victor was like, you wouldn't believe it. They're just playing $300, $400 pots. And I was like, there's no way. And he's like, yes. And they said it's easy and it's a strategy game and there's a lot of depth to it. And it sort of ticked all the boxes, a lot of similarities to StarCraft. It was very much sort of like a 1v1 environment, really strategic, outthinking your opponent. You had to have good game sense, etc. So Victor started telling me about it and started teaching me how to play. And he's actually the one that sent me my first $10 to play with online. So, you know, don't think I ever paid that one back. But Victor was just very good. And he was just like one of the people that really did it in the right way. He had a good purpose for it. The way he was teaching me about poker was just very responsible and in a very calm sort of way. Like he still played like a complete lunatic, but it was within strategic confines that made that the best strategy, right? So I think it was awesome. Just climbing that ladder and just being, it made it real for me too. Like he was doing something real.
That's how I thought you were like a nit. And you just,
I played like 10-20 heads up and stuff. Like,
oh, really?
It was crazy.
Did you ever play in the
games.
World Series?
No, it's all cash games. Hold'em.
Oh, okay. And all the cash games
You thought I was a nit?
Huh?
You thought I was a nit?
Well, you played like a nit.
You were sitting on my left. I hadn't played for 10 years. What are you talking about?
No, I'm going off of like my only impression.
Yeah. Wait, so drinking at your house is like how you've decided that I played 7 years of my life. That's crazy.
I don't know. So you played in like high stakes cash games?
Yeah, I played $25, $50, $5,000 buy-in. You know, like
online or
online,
IRL?
all online.
Oh, all online.
Yeah, everything online.
Oh, everything was online.
I would go to Vegas like in the summer during the World Series, not to play the tournaments, but to play the cash games. Yeah, which were very like healthy, good cash games, like during the World Series.
Oh yeah, 100%.
Really good.
Yeah. I mean, as you know, like I've played now in the World Series.
You've taken over the torch
twice. Yeah. And then I play cash too, at least a couple times a month. So I love it. It's such a great game.
It is.
It's a phenomenal game.
I mean, everything he's saying about like the feeling of like, I played StarCraft nonstop for 5 years straight. And then I found poker and it was the same feeling. Like, this is the only thing I want to do with my life. I'm going to put all of my time into this. And the same like strategic depth, the grinding, the motivation, the self-improvement. I found all of that in poker the same way I had in StarCraft.
Yep. I can see that. And there's a lot of crossover between poker and video games. I mean, the mastery, the focus, how dynamic it is. It's not just a GTO, you know, it's also reading people, pattern recognition.
Dealing with losses.
You know, the mental part of all of that. Like, yeah, to be great at poker, you need very similar things as a StarCraft player. I totally agree with that.
I think that was always his purpose for poker as well. You know, it holds a special place in his heart, but for him, the purpose was always like, okay, I can do something with this. Before actually StarCraft 2 came out, I think that Team Liquid sort of plateaued in a way. It had a lot of members and it was very active, but it wasn't sort of like growing or taking next steps. So if I knew then that Victor said, well, the goal is actually to sign 100 esports athletes, then I would have been like, okay, then it's not looking very great right now, you know, in terms of like, if you want to call it failing or something. But I feel like the goals also changed.
Team Liquid was based on StarCraft 1 and our fandom of that. When Blizzard announced StarCraft 2, it was kind of the first time you really thought, oh my God, this is a chance to... Have you ever had a moment where you thought back, if I would do something different if I knew what was going to happen? StarCraft 2 was like that for a lot of people. They wanted to, you know, be the biggest coverage site, or be a pro gamer, or be a streamer, or be whatever for StarCraft 1, and wasn't able to. And StarCraft 2 really felt like this was a fresh start do-over for a lot of people that wanted to get into esports, that wanted to do their thing. The TL office, this wasn't really an office. We were living in a 3-bedroom apartment in Astoria over, we were on the second floor over like
this is in New York,
people.
Yeah.
And they were the parents of this guy named Angelo. He owned Midtown Comics, which I found really funny because he never raised the rent on us. And he liked us because we were like, you know, we were nerds. We were just in our apartment the whole time playing games and out working on the website. And he liked what we did. He thought it was really cool. At the time, it was like 2010, so he didn't really understand what was going on, but he thought it was very cool that we were running essentially a web startup in the apartment of his parents, you know. So Victor sometime visited, guys, it was not a crazy apartment. It was a tiny, it wasn't tiny, it was all right. But the room Victor stayed in was just like, I don't think it had windows. It was like it was just a closet apartment with a mattress on the ground. You know, our day-to-day was pretty, we did not have a company hierarchy that had well-defined roles. We were all just kind of doing stuff. But back then, I would say the culture was one of, if you're passionate about something, you can just make it happen. People will rally behind you, and it was all volunteer work. I remember one time, like, the site was down and one of our friends, like, ordered delivery food to wake us up so that we could understand that. And I go downstairs and I'm like, what's going on? And, you know, the delivery guy has 6 Snapples in a bag, and he's just like delivery for Team Liquid. And I'm like, what the? And then the note said the site is down. And I'm like, well, who sent us this?
So this is probably 2010. StarCraft 2 has just come out. TeamLiquid.net has probably gone like 20x the traffic, just almost, not technically, but almost overnight with StarCraft 2 coming out. Suddenly, like, ad revenue on the website is going up significantly, and we feel like, okay, wow, maybe this can be a business. And so I looked for like who can be the first paid employees for Team Liquid, but we started with Hotbit, Ken, and Rich in New York, and both of them were huge contributors at the highest ranks of at least a voluntary group, and Hotbit lived in New York, so that made sense. And Rich, who was just a wizard when it came to programming and PCs and whatnot. So we have 2 of our greatest staff members who are willing to make the dive and go full-time into esports. One of them lives in New York, and one of them is basically saying, I will work for you if it's in New York. Yeah. And it's like, okay, I guess we are starting a company in New York City. And so that's what we did. We started a company registration, and they were there. I flew in, and I was probably there, in my memory at least, let's say like 2 months of the year, just working out of the New York office / more like apartment. And that's how we started. And then eventually that apartment, I think at its peak, we had maybe 4, maybe 5 people working out of the living room. And that's where it all began.
I think StarCraft at the time felt really huge. Like, it felt like the entire esports scene. Obviously, at that time, League of Legends and Dota had not really grown yet, but they were on the rise. So winning these StarCraft tournaments really felt like make or break for these scenes.
Yeah, when StarCraft 2 came out, I do actually think that what Hotbit is describing was how we all felt about it. Like, wow, this thing that we've been passionate about for a decade, maybe it's real. Maybe we can actually turn this into a thing. All the learnings that we've had in StarCraft 1, We can apply them here in a more business-like manner, business-like fashion. So everyone was like super excited. You know when everyone just feels like you're on the way up, and there's this vibe, this atmosphere of like we're going somewhere. That's how it felt like when StarCraft 2 hit.
I think my most memorable time with Victor was definitely our time in Korea together.
When we originally got to Korea, we were in a team house in Bundang, which is outside of Seoul proper.
So this is like 2010. This is StarCraft 2. So this is TLO and Jinro. So if you remember Jinro, he made 2 GSL semifinals.
Oh, okay.
And I was just in Seoul, right, where we actually had like all the StarCraft legends like of Team Liquid coming back together again. Jinro still lives there. He was there. He has a Korean wife. We had Teja there. We have Hero who was there. Because we were only in one game, without these guys, there is no Team Liquid after, right? Without Jinro's appearances in GSL, getting to the semifinals, which I think is still the best, like non-Korean result in GSL, like even today in history. Without Teja, without Hero, it's like this. You would have this gap in like Team Liquid, where we probably would not be here today.
Basically, before we had a real team house, we just stayed at the OGS manager's apartment, and it was so tiny. It was, I think, a 1 or 2 bedroom apartment.
Would not be HR
Way too
approved
small
today,
for
by the
the
way.
Liquid family and OGS family together.
With the league house that we had 14 people in a 5-bedroom.
I think that might talk about it. I'm not sure. We will see.
I don't know if you heard. Have you seen the videos of Mark Z? He slept in the closet.
Oh yeah.
I don't know if you've seen pictures of that. It was pretty
I think
funny.
one of them also slept in a closet.
Yeah.
Not too long, but for a little bit.
How companies are built.
Yeah.
101.
So we got this new place in Bucheon, I think, and we got there. We were really happy eating like Chinese food, and then suddenly we find out that Victor and the Korean coach, they're not allowed up because the ground floor is being blocked by like the mothers of the building who are angry about this professional team moving into the house, right? So we end up homeless for a week because they have to like scramble and find a new apartment, find a new house.
He'll explain.
We end up living like in a love motel. Every night, like me and Dario and Victor would go like out, have like one beer and just like relax. And it was a very fond memory for me to just kind of bond through adversity, you know?
So this is like 2010, right? So StarCraft 2 is just out. At some point, the GSL, the league in Korea is announced. And coming from a Brute War history, the community feels, I feel like that's going to be the place to be, right? That's where the best players are going to be at. And so we moved Tilo and Jinro and eventually a few others to Korea, but they were the first. And so I was there with them like maybe 6 weeks or so, setting it all up. And what he mentions, like we were kicked out of the first apartment that we rented. We were partnering up with a Korean team locally, 14 guys into like fairly large, but still one apartment. It was not appreciated by the neighbors. And we ended up staying in this love motel for a week that he spoke about. Yeah. These heart-shaped beds. So, you know, like in Korea.
Sounds like a romantic honeymoon spot.
Yeah, so a lot of Koreans, like they still live with their parents for quite a while before they move out. But they still want to have like a social life. Right, and so if they go out and they find someone they like, they might end up in these love motels. But we had no options, so we stayed there as well. And
for like a week.
It was a different experience.
I can only imagine. Yeah, bonding through trauma.
It's super bonding. I mean, they still remember. And did you hear him say like it was like such a great time?
Yeah.
And we had such a great time laughing about it, and just like. It is a little bit rolling with the punches, right? Like, okay, whatever. Like, we're gonna run into stuff. Things are gonna happen. Like, it's just about how do we solve it? How do we deal with it? And we keep going. And that's
part
what
of
it
the
was.
TL way today.
Yeah.
So I would say even now, like having been retired from playing StarCraft for like 12, 13 years or whatever it is at this point, when we moved to Korea at that time in my life, I think Victor was like a really solid like adult role model. Good ones, but this was like my first time away from like family, away from everything like that in my early 20s. So I think Victor really gave like a good impression of seasoned, experienced, like adult professional. Yeah, he left me with a very good impression in that way. And I hope he can continue to do that to like future generations of professional gamers, because most of us need a little bit of, grounding.
That's definitely true.
Yes, lived through that.
I remember the summer of Teja. That guy was just different. I remember being in the Utrecht office with Victor, and all his other players, they would come by, like TLO or Rhett or whoever, and they would be there practicing in front of Victor. Like Victor's sitting like right behind them, right? He's the owner of the team. He decides their salary, like, how long they're signed for, all that kind of stuff.
I remember this.
So these guys are practicing really hard, like right in front. It's like your boss is like sitting right behind you. So they're practicing 8 hours a day, 10 hours a day, 12 hours a day, just grinding before the tournament. Teja shows up probably for like a week before DreamHack. And I don't think I saw that guy practice once. He was sitting in front of Victor. I think he was watching K-dramas. And I think he got to like, he was watching K-dramas, playing League of Legends. And he like got his Protoss to like top 5. He's a Terran player. He was like just playing Protoss for fun. And he won the tournament. He legitimately didn't practice at all, didn't care that Victor was sitting behind him. And I talked to Victor, I'm like, dude, like, he's like, that guy's just crazy. And Victor's like, yeah, like, what can I say? He won the tournament. I can't, nothing I can say about that. So, yeah, that was very exciting. I know that guy, he got to like Challenger in League of Legends and was like top 500 in Overwatch. And, so that guy was just, he's just amazing at anything he tries when it comes to video games.
What he's describing is like, this is in the Netherlands office. So this must be probably 2013, 2014, like this era.
And this is the same office that I first visited?
Yes, yeah. Those apartments on the 8th floor, like the highest floor of the building. And I remember that. Like, I remember Teja was there like on a boot camp for himself for the tournament in Europe. And he never played StarCraft. But I've always believed team games are a bit different because you need to adhere to your teammates and your team chemistry and practice together. But in a 1v1 game especially, I've always believed if that's his path to success, if he's winning tournament after tournament after tournament, who am I to criticize like his methods?
Yeah, of course.
Right? What's working for him, and so that's what he's describing there. And I've always felt that way. Like everyone finds their own path, finds whatever works for them. Again, it is a bit different in a team environment, but that's what worked for Teja.
Yep.
I think in StarCraft, we paid decently well, but Evil Geniuses always paid much better. So we did actually rely on scouting talent. Like Teja had not won anything before he joined Team Liquid. Same thing for Jinro, same thing for Hero, same thing for a couple other players, including Clem, by the way. And so I've always taken some pride in StarCraft, at least, in the fact that we always scouted players like early, long before they started winning, seeing something in their style, seeing something in their strategies that made us believe like they were going somewhere.
Same thing in League. Like I would have my own eye on, oh, this person's really good. And then building rosters, you talk to the pro players in the community that have to go in solo queue with them all the time, and they have a really good opinion on those players.
Yeah, everyone knows each other.
Exactly, and so you lean into a lot of that. But that's really cool. I mean, you found these players before they were them.
I will say, it always feels, every win is nice, but it always feels a little bit more special if you've built something from the ground up, right? Like, let's say our Dota team winning the International in 2024, picking them up just as talents and like struggling for 3 years before they start winning. It is a different feeling from like just getting the greatest players and winning something. When Team Liquid was only StarCraft, it means that so much of my time was also focused on that. It was also the game that I played, although obviously I played more StarCraft 1 than StarCraft 2, but you're traveling with them, you're at all these events, you're sharing hotel rooms together, you're just constantly around each other, and so your impact is much larger. And at the time I was still, nowadays I cannot, but at the time I was still able to give like feedback and thoughts on like how to play the game, like how to deal with certain things, how to play certain strategies. And so I do miss that a little bit, like this real close opportunity to help people, our players grow in the game that they participate in.
Yeah. Early League of Legends, same sort of thing. Traveling, living together, you're there all the time, and those are the things like you're above board. You're thinking and operating more professionally, you know, than everybody else that's around you. You know, you're like helping them. Like I felt like I was like a dad, but also a brother in a lot of situations. But like that was kind of the role then, you know.
No juicy stories.
Listen, I don't know.
No incriminating Steve.
Oh God.
The early days of playing League.
Oh my gosh, you
so
got
I
Paul
remember
Belter too?
being a high school student, probably my freshman or sophomore year. I remember Steve asked me to play on his team back then, which was Team XXX.
XXX, wait, pause. Does that mean what I think it means?
Yes, we were just being stupid.
Oh my God. That's such good info though. I never knew. Before I created Team Liquid, I was on a clan called SOS, and it stands for Soldiers of Satan.
Oh, there you go. Okay, I feel a little better now.
That is why I picked the name Nazgul, which is like the evil characters from Lord of the Rings. So without Soldiers of Satan, there is no Nazgul. So I appreciate Poe Belter so much more right now.
I'm curious if he's going to tell a story of. Anyway, I'll let him go.
And then Poe Belter is going to talk about like how professional you were. This guy's so professional.
And we would play every weekend in Go for LOL, which was the highest tier of League competition at the time. Like 8 hours Saturday and Sunday for like a $20 Riot Point gift card.
That's the exact same
that
story.
was Team XXX,
That's what it was.
which became Team Unrestricted, our very first ever sponsor.
I mean, at the time when we were doing the Go for LOL events and I set up the League of Legends team, this is before Riot did anything really in esports. And, you know, I would just like contact a lot of the top players on the leaderboard and ask if they wanted to play. It was a lot of like chasing people and like managing them almost like a parent. Like, please make sure you show up on Friday or like on Sunday. You got to be there at 1 p.m. We have a match at noon. And then like, give me your phone number. I need to like call you a million times because you're late. And like, it was like wrangling teenagers, essentially.
But you took it like super seriously, right? This is for $20.
Of course, yeah. You know, because it wasn't the money that was the motivating factor, but it was like the love of the game.
Like it meant something.
Yeah, like I want to compete in this game. It's really important. We need to try to win. Like it was almost like my way of running my own little sports team, you know. And so I did that in Civ, and then I took it over to League. So like, if I'm going to do this, if we're going to play these, we better win and try our best. And you know, I would rotate players a lot. You know, it was like if one player like didn't show up for a bunch of matches or played pretty bad, I would just like cut them and like bring in another player. And so I was ruthless. Yeah, I was like a ruthless like. We were Team XXX, and then I needed to find a sponsor. And so I went and just emailed a bunch of companies, and there was this, I don't remember the exact company, it was UNR, and it was like a product. They sold like keyboards and mouse pads or something like that. I don't know. And they were like, we'll pay for all your travel to Kiev. We'll cover all your flights for your team and all this stuff. We just want the team to be branded UNR. And I was like, done. And so what I wanted to create like a promo for our new sponsor. And
that's this.
And this is and also the announcement of our roster. And so I found a guy on Reddit and I was like, oh, he makes the sickest videos. And so we hired him to do this announcement video for the roster.
That's already pretty good. Okay, I like the intro. It's still pretty cool.
Yeah. So these are some of the matches in like ESL, and Go for LOL, and
I think it holds up pretty well.
Yeah. WCG.
Jats.
Yeah, Jat.
Is that the same Jat?
Yeah, same Jat. He used to be a jungler back in the day.
Oh, and Voyboy.
Yeah, Voyboy back in the day too. This is like old League of Legends. Like this is, I mean, look at it compared to now, you know. It
still looks the same.
It's a pretty cool, like.
I think it's really well done.
For its time, like, yeah, these were like the top teams at the time. Premier League finals. There was all these different TOs and events. That's the enemy team is red, and that's me coming from base.
Oh,
Here we go. Amumu, and I love the Vancouver Amumu skin. This is great.
There you go. Look how fast you're running.
Flash, Q.
Are you doing it?
Smite, steal. The
I don't understand League of Legends. I can recognize that skill.
Okay.
Well,
Enough is enough. Sorry.
And then Team UNR eventually became Team Curse.
We talked about it for hours and hours at a time because the company he worked for, he was very happy, very successful. People loved him. The owner loved him, put him under his arm, and was hoping that Steve would be the person that took over that company someday
when he retired.
And giving all that up and trying to join, something curse and building a team. It was a risky move, but you know what? Once he started, he never looked back.
Started, the pursuit of building a company, which I think was defined by just sleepless nights, a lot of uncertainty.
Early days were like real Wild West. There was no structure, like no coaches. I think there was like one team house at the time.
Yeah, we were packed like sardines in the first house. Well, I was in the Vegas house and then the first kind of like LA Redondo Beach house, and we had a lot of us in there. This part's gonna get cut, but we learned about the squatting rules.
It was weird because I would call a insurance broker and they'd be like, wait, you want to get workers' comp for like 7 guys that live in the same house? Like, what are you guys doing?
The living room is where your scrim room is, and people are second monitoring, Crunchyroll or watching anime or something. But I really wanted to have my own like little space. So I picked the walk-in closet of the master bedroom, and it was like really narrow, just long enough to lay a twin bed down it. And that was my own room. Other people had to share rooms or even share beds, but I fortunately got my own little space. So I slept in a closet for my first year in esports.
I was living in Korea. I ended up leaving CLG, and then Steve hit me up like the next day and told me about this whole idea that they're gonna we're gonna make the Cursed Mansion or whatever, and we're gonna have cameras on 24/7, and we're gonna sell it and make it into a reality TV show. I was like, this is the dumbest thing I've ever heard.
There wasn't a direct path to commercialization and monetization in esports in the early days. And so part of what would help pay the bills were being relevant on YouTube and having streaming content, because Twitch was going through its kind of like birth as a streaming platform. And so the strategy when we did everything under Curse was, yes, we want to win and we want to play, but we're also going to create content and we are going to film everything. We're going to have cameras in the house. We're going to have all the players, they have to be forced to live stream, and we're going to get this mansion in LA and we're going to all live there, and we're going to try to get into the LCS because you had to qualify in, and that was the Cursed Mansion. And so that content ended up doing quite well. Like if you actually go back to some of the old YouTubes where things were published, like the views are insane. It also created like a deep connection with our fans where they got to kind of see the lives of our players. Like I think there was one in particular that I
just had cameras everywhere.
Everywhere, like live in the house, live streaming. Like there was like, there would be like 1,000 people like watching Saints sleep. Like it was crazy. Yeah.
It was wild.
I mean, it helped with our relevancy as Team Curse, and it helped drive connections with our fans. And so, yeah, that was a wild time.
So it's all documented.
It's all documented on the internet.
Good to know.
Yeah.
How would I describe Steve? He is a tremendous leader.
I mean, I thought I was deeply committed to my profession and my craft, but I think that it's been really humbling to see somebody who's just so invested in what they've built, and to be a part of that has been really just inspiring. It's translated into how I approach things in my own life.
Steve was pretty good as a GM. He cares a lot, very passionate, wants to support people. I think he, like a lot of people, wants to hop in there and give his 2 cents sometimes, and that can go well or
Listen
not.
to Mark.
As Team Curse, we had never qualified to go to Worlds. We are in a final match against this other team, LMQ, and it's best of 5. It's 2-2.
Oh, wow.
And we're about to go into the final game, and whoever wins this goes to Worlds, and whoever loses doesn't. Backstage, we had a conversation around what they were going to ban pick, and I said to Voyboy, I said, if they play all tanks, just please don't play Akali, because Voyboy was known for playing Akali, and we last picked it.
Played Akali.
And he played Akali.
This is his original counter to Yasuo.
I think that pick to this day is controversial, but it was us. Like, that's just the team. That was what we did, and it was a tough series to lose.
The turret's gone as well.
Some things never change though. So the player comfort picking.
Yeah, exactly.
Being so confident.
So far,
Yeah, you're 100% right.
LMQ, you're headed to the World Championship.
The highs of being up 2-0 and being close to closing out the third game to now not qualifying for
League of
Worlds
Legends,
was really
legends
tough.
in this match.
And you know, that night, right after, Steve wanted to have a meeting. Literally,
God.
like an hour after the game. It is
An hour after the game, Steve?
Yes, I was so mad.
What is the point?
This is a bad.
I hated this conversation. We all sat around a table, and it was like a tell-all of everything.
I think I was kind of tired of managing all of the interpersonal dynamics of people coming to me and saying, oh, this and this and this, and oh, I don't like this player and all this. And so for some reason, I just thought the best solution was to almost do like one of those like interventions where everybody just comes together and you just like say it directly to everybody's face, what you've been saying behind their back. And yeah, it was awkward.
Is it in here? Is it? Can I?
No, it was not filmed.
Oh, it's not filmed.
It was not filmed.
Okay, I was getting ready. I think the 2 cents are still there, by the way. I think some things are still the same.
Yeah, I mean, I think back then I was so involved, just like when you were a player on the team and you were surrounded by your teammates, and
you have to.
You know, you just are living and breathing, and you're obsessed with it, and nothing else matters, and you almost have tunnel vision on winning and anything that's required in order to win. And I was obsessed with it. You know, winning doesn't happen overnight, and it's a series of failures, and each time you hopefully pick something up on why you lost, and you add it to your XP, and you move forward, you know, and you don't give up. And so I guess that was probably the lesson there.
I think Steve was just someone who always tried to like look out for me, make sure nothing bad happened to me, because I was just a kid.
It was really tough in the early days because there was no precedent. There was no, roadmap for how this happened before.
I definitely think Steve was especially when I was playing, he was the only one making an effort to do community stuff. Like I remember we did like a food bank thing. I feel like he definitely wanted to create a community around the team rather than it just being a bunch of fans.
I would bet all of the money in my pocket that if you went to Riot and you said to them, in those early days, who was the most professional manager, the most professional organization, I would be very surprised if the answer wasn't Steve.
And finding somebody like Victor to help him move along just made sense.
Hold on, can we pause here? Sorry to stop the video, but speaking of TL history, did you also know that we wrote a book about Team Liquid? From a forum to professional esports team with headquarters across the globe, Behind the Blue tells an emotive human story of both Team Liquid and esports. The victories, the international, this is the big win, and the setbacks. Saint Vicious, Elements, everybody remembers the fight in the apartment with Elements and Saint. The growth and the trials that come with. Behind the Blue delivers behind the scenes, never before seen elements of a team that has been here for 25 years. Oh my God. This was the mock-up of the mascot. They sent us a photo of it being done, and we were like, don't ship it, and like cancel the order. We still had to pay half of it for that. In a show don't tell fashion, everything is done through images and brief retellings, making it perfect for a coffee table skim or a proper slow read. Oh my gosh, there are so many awesome memories in this book from one fan to another. If this sounds like something that you'd also enjoy, coming out soon. And so pick up your piece at the TL store. Let's go Liquid. You can get it now, it's for sale, get it, get it, get it.
We had a really strong relationship with Riot, but as the LCS was forming, some of the things that we thought were going to happen changed, right? We originally made a really big investment in a house in LA. I think we were spending, $20,000 a month. With the idea that Riot was going to hold events there because, they told us they would. And then at some point they said, we don't want to show favoritism, right? And we were like, okay, well, we just spent all this money. We originally were going to have a Curse EU team. And so we rented a penthouse in Dublin, Ireland. And then we found out at that time that, they weren't going to let us have a team in two different areas of the world from a league perspective. At the end of the day, we decided that we wanted to make the investment in the league rather than in the team itself, but we wanted the team to live on. So essentially what we did was, we made a deal to essentially sell the team to Steve.
I think Steve always had a vision that was forward-facing on the business side. I think once you saw the level of hype and attention and fandom that existed around League of Legends and esports, it became very obvious that there was going to be opportunities there, and having the vision to know where it was going to go in the future and the skill set to navigate the early crazy waters. I think there were a lot of touch and go moments with different orgs and teams and just the people involved. And so there was a couple of people early in the days of the scene who could see where it was going and help get the scene there. And Steve was definitely one of those guys.
He just really had a good head on his shoulders. He was someone who put trust into me and into a game as niche as Smash at the time, Melee especially.
But he also maintained some responsibilities. So we had some sponsors that he had to stay with. Some of them are sponsors, still to this day. Alienware with Dell was a huge sponsor for Curse back then, and part of that was the team. And I believe they're still a sponsor as a part of Team Liquid right now.
I definitely think Steve was a strong factor and continues to be a very strong factor for why this relationship has been so successful over the years. His, I think, confidence and stability has been, I think, a really strong part of our relationship.
Steve's job was to take the team, continue to provide the services that we had promised to those sponsors, and then ultimately make the team better. And he was a little bit, a guy without a brand because, he couldn't take Curse with him. And so he had to figure something out, which is how I think he ultimately wound up, talking with Victor and doing the merger that brought them to become Team Liquid.
That was just like a classic Steve move in my head, because I think Steve came from like an investment banking background. So he was always like the business guy. So it made sense that he merged.
Brandon does a pretty good job of explaining that, where they had naming rights for the esports organization, and there was a drop down underneath Curse Inc. called Curse Competitive Esports. And they did a deal with Riot where they sold them Curse Voice, which was a product to do invoice communications within the Riot client. And Riot was not going to buy that asset from Curse unless they got rid of their association with Curse Esports. And so they sold that to me, and then I was then running this brandless esports organization with assets in just like Smash and League of Legends. I had to ask myself, should I come up with a new team brand, or should I merge with an existing esports organization? So I went down the route of figuring out what that team brand was going to be. We had a couple names figured out. We had a couple brand ideas. This amazing graphic designer, Evie, helped come up with a lot of that stuff. And I don't even think you know what the names were. I probably should never say them. They're pretty funny ones.
Team XXX?
No, it wasn't Team XXX.
2.0.
No, it would be embarrassing. I'm not even going to say. So anyway, so it was that route, or it was, merging, and it was a short list of organizations. And so, how do you remember the first time I reached out? Do you?
Oh, I remember some parts definitely still jump out to me. And also partially because I think we've retold them a couple times, right? But I remember getting on a call, and we had done a little bit of business before on a Savage Hearthstone buyout, and that was really our only touch point before then. And you'd ask, like, can we call? It's like, okay, sure, there's a player thing that Steve wants to discuss, but like our businesses did not interact that much. You were so big in League of Legends, we're so big in StarCraft, and so I'm very curious what it's about. And you pretty much just say, do you want to merge our companies?
That's how I opened the call.
And I just remember just being like, what the fuck is happening right now? Because on my end, this is 2014. So StarCraft has now been 15 years of my life.
Mm-hmm.
And I between StarCraft, Team Liquid, TeamLiquid.net, poker, I've dictated like every move of my life and I've been in control and in charge of like my own destiny, my own decisions. And I think that realization was very difficult. Like if we merge, it means like we have to decide together.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's the biggest thing that kept me up at night. But I remember that, and I've really gotten to know you in this regard. Like this is really something you do really well. That you said, I understand it's a lot, but shall we just like go through all the variables? Shall we just look at like how our companies look like? Shall we just look at the numbers, what we do, and then well, if you don't like it, like you don't like it. So we worked through it, and it's really like, okay, you have great video staff, we have great writers. You have League of Legends, we have this game. You have this sponsor, which doesn't conflict with the sponsor that we had, and it's if you actually looked at the two businesses, it was pretty crazy that we could merge without all too much overlap. And it just made so much sense that in the end, I'm a pretty rational guy. And so even if the emotions are saying, well, it's going to be tough, like doing it together, like not being in charge anymore, it made way too much sense. And we went for it.
Yeah. You have an apprehension on me at the time?
No, I don't think so. In fact, when we went through everything, I even think our personalities were something where I really saw it could work really well, because I know myself. I'm a little bit more focused on optimization, like trying to make sure everything is like running smoothly and going right, and I think you're much stronger at like just chasing business and thinking about the next commercial deal. And I felt like our personalities would work really well to build this business. So no, definitely no apprehension. If anything, just another factor that was telling me like, this is probably a good thing.
Mm-hmm. I remember us having our merged company off of like a Google Doc, or was it even a Google Doc? Maybe it was a Word doc.
We just threw the financials into a shared Google Excel sheet.
And we were like, okay, let's just see. And then we actually even do the legal paperwork until a little bit later, because
more than a year later, year and a half. Like,
and we were like operating, and we were just going off of each other's word, essentially. I mean, that takes a lot of trust. Can you imagine doing that today with a business?
That's
like impossible, right?
That's going to be a tough sell.
A tough sell.
When they announced that Team Liquid were merging together between Team Cursed and Team Liquid, it meant a really big chapter for the Alienware journey in terms of our marketing growth in esports, and the new titles that we would have access to, the new countries we would have access to, and the new players. So we were very excited for that and looking forward to the next body of work that we could do together.
Yeah, I mean, look, we're in the gigantic Alienware training facility right now, and it's come very far. There's one of these in like the Netherlands, one in Brazil. I've never been to either of those, but it's crazy to look at this gigantic facility. And we just used to play for like $20 on the weekend. We had an office, we had apartments. People, went from the office and apartments for their scrims, and not like kind of breaking up that home and work life.
Steve was, looking for that home from a branding perspective. And it was either like, okay, obviously we have a spot in the LCS, which means people are going to know who we are. So he could have made his own brand, or he could have, partnered with a brand that was existing. Ultimately, the decision to make that arrangement to partner with Victor, I think, wound up being a really good one. Team Liquid had been around for a long time, over a decade, I think, by that point.
When he joined his company with Victor and we became Team Liquid, I was just really, really thankful, because the org just really does everything very professional.
Yeah.
Every sign we do, every change in the company, any activation, whatever Team Liquid does as an organization, it's done without cutting corners, without any compromises. Usually, it's done very professional.
He gets some very nice compliments.
Oh, he did.
Well-established company like Google.
Forward
Everything they do
that's good.
Very It's very clean.
One of the things that really stood out with Team Liquid the whole time that I was there was like the business approach to it and finding that middle ground between keeping things grassroots and authentic to the scene and knowing what the scene kind of wanted and needed, with having that kind of future-facing, knowing that you need capital, you need professionalism, you need to have these sorts of things around having a properly running business so that you can actually keep doing the thing that people want, which is, you know, having competitive players who are paid to spend all of their energy on this thing, and they're supported with food and housing and support staff and all these sorts of things. So I think part of it was the vision and the savvy to get to that kind of business level.
The other thing that was really unusual that they did that I have to admit I was wrong about was the co-CEO thing. I've always been of one mind that there really needs to be a captain in one ship, and I strongly encouraged both of them to just pick one person and have the other person be the COO, and they held firm and said, we are going to be co-CEOs, and they have found a way to make that work.
For Steve, I know that relationship has been really grounding for him, and to see how they've complemented each other, and I think that ultimately that partnership is the reason why.
Well, you know this is because
Team Liquid has grown to
this
be
idea,
as,
next idea,
huge and successful as it is.
I think that they were different in a world where, and not all, but a lot of esports teams were being run by people who didn't have a lot of experience or maturity, and that makes it tough to run an organization like that.
You can see all the good intention and everything that they do. So I'm really, really proud to, you know, be on a team, especially headed by a guy like Steve and a guy like Victor.
TL is Steve's baby. TL is Steve's baby.
I think if we're having an honest conversation about being co-CEOs, there are actually a lot of challenging, trying, difficult times because you're an equal voice and you're never going to fully agree or have exactly the same vision. You both have founded an esports company that you're extremely passionate about. So you're also dealing with like a strong feelings, right? We are able to deal with disagreement really well. Not that we won't disagree, but that we will, and we will keep going on. And I feel like we both have just a drive for an end goal. And so these things, they don't really matter in the grand scheme of things. And I feel like that's why we make it work.
I've come to learn that your perspective with my perspective is honestly, when discussed in like a professional way, yields the best decision. Mm-hmm. And I think that's why Team Liquid has been so successful, is because you've brought the counter argument to an idea or whatever we want to do, and you're doing that to me. And so over time, we've learned how to communicate with one another to like really come to amazing decisions. Now that I look at it, hindsight 2020, like because we're different people is why Team Liquid has been so successful. And I think what's grounded us together is that we just have high integrity and values. Ryan said it so well, like TL's my baby. You know, really, you're the founder of this, but I love it like a baby too, you know what I mean? And so when we put that first in like the care of the child, you know, it's like, you know, like you're on the same side of the table. You're aligned in the most intertwined way, you know, from a DNA perspective of the company. So I think that's why it's always worked out.
I can only wholeheartedly agree.
Yeah.
So in the very beginning of Team Liquid, everything was really grassroots.
What Steve and Victor did that I think was really smart was they didn't try to raise the most amount of money. They tried to bring the right people in.
So when Team Liquid first got a multi-year deal with Alienware, it definitely changed how we operated as an org.
I think for us at Dell, we were and have always been such a globally minded company that to suddenly have a partner that can grow to so many different countries and audiences within a span of a couple of weeks was really promising.
Having like the financial stability to go after some of the top teams, talent, players around the world, like I think elevated us to becoming the world leader we are today.
You know, I'd like to think in the past 15 years and since kind of the union of Steve and Victor and Curse and Liquid, that growth has really accelerated kind of in mirror image of what Dell was looking for as their, what I assume is their biggest sponsor in the past 10, 15 years. They've grown so tremendously. And to look at that journey from, you know, what started out as probably a 10, 12 man operation back in 2011 to now, Team Liquid is probably 300 plus people in so many countries. And so it's a testament to that growth.
I remember the first time that we went into the Alienware training facility and thinking like, this is my desk, and we're in this like beautifully branded facility, and thinking like no other team in the world really has something like this, how special it was. And that first day, just like sitting at my desk and crying like that this is real, and that like, I don't know, this dream, this passion of ours had turned into something that was real in an office that you could show people and like harvest some of the best players and talent in the world all competing and training under one roof.
At the time, we started to have major problems in the League of Legends condo. Like we had mental health issues, there were fights, there were both physical altercations and arguments and depression and all these kind of systematic things associated with putting a bunch of players in a house together and having them train and compete in the highest pressure, to win. And I knew that we needed to have a separation of like the facilities in the house. And we tried to do it like on a budget and rent this like really cheap office space in Santa Monica that had no windows. And
I visited that one.
Yeah, it was not it. It was awful, great. Right? And it's like we just went for the separation, but we didn't realize that you actually have to be in a facility where you feel good too. And I remember we took that idea to Alienware, and we had drawn up some of the cost, and Mike was with us, and we were like, oh my gosh, it's really expensive to like build out an entire facility in Los Angeles, California, and do all this stuff. And what is the price tag associated with that? And we brought it to Alienware, and they were like, let's do it. Mm-hmm. The Alienware training facility has become, just synonymous. Like Alienware and Team Liquid are like synonymous. Like if you were to just go to a random non-Team Liquid fan and be like, can you name one of Team Liquid's partners? They're probably going to say Alienware, They've done such a good job with that association. And so we made it happen. And that's when we signed our first like big deal per year, but also lengthwise. And that gave us a lot of confidence in running the company and knowing that it was going to be around,
Team Liquid probably looks very different today, if not for like the 15 years of support from Alienware. And it's something I'm very grateful for.
Without a doubt.
When franchising was coming around, everyone was crapping their pants, hoping that they got in. And I think a lot of the orgs were probably shoo-ins, just from their history and whatnot. But from my understanding, Riot still was making them go through all the hoops, and it was stressful about not getting in. Right before then, Team Liquid had a really bad year competitively. If I remember correctly, 2017, they got relegated. They had like the loan of Doublelift, who was retired at the time. So I think there was like a concern on Steve's end about the competitive success of the team, maybe hurting their application chances.
We submitted the most hefty application ever, like 4 magazines of information. I think it wasn't until the LCS application came across on my lap.
The whole process,
At the time, it was very much, here's the content, here's the documents of all the write-ups made by so many different people, right? Making it was really intense. I think we didn't intend on printing it early in the process. I think it was simply a digital PDF thing that we really want to do right. And it was not until almost last minute we're like, we actually need to print this. Can we reformat the whole thing so we can print it? But it was like definitely fun. And I say fun because I don't remember the grueling hard parts of it, but there was a lot of edits. There was a lot of changes. I think in the middle of it, when we were talking about the roster, there was this whole situation on social media where there was like a leak, and then we had to get rid of that entire part completely and be like, okay, what do we do to change this part? I think all in all, it was one of the first projects where I realized how big of a deal this was and how important it was. So I wanted to do it right.
Franchising was definitely a game changer. I think it was a very interesting move to try and further legitimize the sport and give teams the ability to, whether through the revenue sharing systems that started to be developed, as well as the protections from getting dropped from the league. That was always one of the biggest things back then, was Obviously it was stressful, but it also felt hard to secure long-term partnerships with sponsors and whatnot. It was this like one extra step. I think that was one of the things that was really cool about Riot and the LCS as a whole was they were really ambitious to further and further legitimize the sport, going from tournament circuits, which is what esports was built on, but like what if we had a whole league, and what if that league played in person with weekly matches, and then we had this global structure on top with worlds that gets added that kind of leveled up, and then they started doing the opening ceremonies and the world's music videos, and like every year it felt like there was something building crazier and crazier, and that was what kind of franchising felt like a continuation of, was this overall approach of trying to push and make things bigger and bigger.
I mean, I don't know if you recall going into franchising, but we had the promotion relegation tournament right before, and if we got relegated, we were going to have to pay an extra $2 million in order to get into the LCS on top of the LCS fee. And at the very same time, it was 2018, I believe, because we were playing in the international. The promotion relegation tournament was actually like at the exact same time as the international being broadcast. Yeah. And I was at the LCS studio and I was flipping my shit because we just weren't performing well and I thought we were gonna lose, and we pulled in double lift last minute as a mercenary to come onto the roster and play. And one of the more stressful times athletically I've ever had. And I remember us surviving through promotion relegation, winning that best of 5 match, and literally like 10 minutes after, I remember looking at watching the international on my phone, and I was like, oh my God, we just won the international.
Yeah. That was
that was awesome.
A crazy day.
Yeah, it was a crazy day.
Yeah.
In esports, there's going to be ups and downs, and you've been through them. Recently, we've had a lot of difficulty on the Counter-Strike squad, and these times, it's really hard to win over and over and over. And what I've realized is that it takes the smallest thing. You got to fall down. You've got to make mistakes. You got to go through the rough patches to be able to recognize the patterns and build the knowledge. Looking at it now, it's like we're pretty experienced when it comes to it.
It's all part of our story, right? And that's also sports.
Yeah, that happens all the time, right?
I hate breaking points.
I mean, I know you hate it. This is something we go back and forth with all the time. I like it for what it was, and
A necessary evil. I dislike a lot about it, but I will also say this was a sponsorship deliverable, right? And so we owed it to a partner, an important partner, that we would make a documentary about our season. And the season, it was what it was. It unfolded in a certain way, and I think our staff felt like, Steve, Victor, like we have only one storyline, and that's a captivating storyline, and that's it, right? And so if you look at all of the context from back then, it's not that I necessarily disagree that we made it because the conditions were very specific, but yeah, in my opinion, I think there's a certain protection of the player locker room where they can be themselves and you protect their image, and they can argue and they can be angry. And I feel like Breaking Point put a lot of that on display, which is, generally speaking, it did not make our players look any better. And
it can be a deterrent for players to want to join the org in the future.
It could be.
Yeah, exactly. If you go back and you look at those 2 years of us being a bottom tier team in the LCS, we were front page Reddit every day. So, if you're gonna lose, at least maintain some relevancy. And so I thought that was our way of counteracting losses.
Staying in the spotlight.
Stay in the spotlight. Like, we both believe that the best way to relevancy is to win.
But if you're not winning.
You might as well. You be talked about. And so I think it was that.
Yeah, and you can definitely feel and sense also the effort and time and energy that the staff put into creating it. It is beautifully made. It's well shot. The intro is incredible, and so I definitely can recognize it.
And I think even within esports, it's hard to get that like non-sponsored, real, what's happening, non-filtered, kind of thing, and that works. When you get to it, it works. That's what the community wants. So that's why I like it.
So every time TL looked to expand into a new title, there was always a lot of thought and strategy that went into what region, what players, is it going to be more of an academy project? Are we looking to be the champions and immediately start there? Or are we looking to build there? I remember having conversations at one point of like, are we too American-based as an org? And are we too European-based? Are we doing enough of signing a Rainbow Six team in Brazil? And always just like trusting their ideas or path for like the overall philosophy of the org. From a competitive standpoint, what region, is the most competitive, marketing. There was such like a big thought process in the decision of what titles and why and how we were going to enter.
Being one of the team's first non-league signings was definitely special. As of right now, it's October 2025. As of we're recording this, I'm apparently one of the longest tenured. I think I'm actually the longest tenured athlete on Liquid now. Well, I guess they changed my categorization, but I still do compete in Melee and they still support me in that. So I guess I am the longest tenured, player on Liquid at this point.
So it was 2014, and I remember Steve really wanted to get back into Counter-Strike. And the game was booming. Digital items were a thing that were going to the moon. And we had a decision to make between two top teams. One of them ended up going to CLG, and then the other one joined Team Liquid.
I'd say that the Liquid CS2 team, we got more respect for being like a top tier team in 2016 during like our Columbus and Cologne runs, and I think that it just leveled up as the years went on for in 2018, 2019. But I think 2016, I'd say, is when it first started.
I think for me, top tier would probably be 2019. Actually,
if you were to judge it like on what our industry peers, if they were all asked like who's the top esports org,
you do have the StarCraft wins under your belt. You have Hungrybox's wins under your belt. In 2017, there's this big moment where we win the international. Mm-hmm. That feels like okay, we're like we're very close to just being in the very, very top regions of esports. 2018 is when we're second all of the year in Counter-Strike.
Wait, was that the Grand Slam? What year was the Grand Slam?
2019.
Oh, 19.
Yeah,
okay.
yeah. And so then we're winning in League of Legends. We're Grand Slam, like winning tons of events in Counter-Strike. We've won the international 2 years prior. That felt
right.
like we're on top, right? Like we're now we're really there, and it's a matter of like how do we stay there? But yeah, 2019 is when I really felt like okay. Like we've arrived to the very top of esports.
Yeah, I actually 100% agree with you. I think 2019, that all the top esports, we were delivering wins in, not Worlds, League of Legends level, but domestically.
Yeah. Take what you can get.
Take what you can get, exactly. And then it felt really good to be runner-up to the Falcons back-to-back years. Yeah. I think that was the first time where I felt like, okay, we're here. You know what I mean?
Like recent 2 years.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. So this is, this is our super team. Oh my God, that was another. We spent so much money on this roster, and the expectations
I remember.
Yeah, the expectations were very high. So I can't remember what game of playoffs this is, but here we are, and we're about to fight Baron, and if we get this, we win the game. But Danny had another idea. He steals the Baron, steals it,
cleans it up.
And then gets a f***ing pentakill.
Yeah, that's brutal.
Oh, what an awful moment. I also respect Danny for the play. That was just insane. That was absolutely insane.
The kill. And Cadian needs to step up because he is the only one here. This is the second shot, and now he's going to get overwhelmed. He just kept fighting forward. Twist at least is able to step in, but JT's Deagle is doing everything. Oh, it is doing everything. He is leading his team to 12. Taking them by force to Copenhagen. Skulls has a 1v3 on his hands, and it's the Deagle of Holzerk that strikes.
We've had a few teams that are like super teams, or where like really accomplished or prestigious players, like they join up together. Sometimes it leads to people concluding, oh, super teams don't work, as like an absolute statement. But I do think sometimes it can work, right? If you find the right players, the right mindset, like the right atmosphere, super teams can work. But we should not take lightly on like what it really takes to compete and what it takes to win. You can't just get a bunch of great players, throw them together, and expect to be winning championships. And unfortunately, sports is a little bit more complex than that.
Yeah, I agree with all that. I think we've shied away from building super teams, and we might do it if we feel like it's the right players in the right context at the right time in the right game, you know? So I couldn't agree more. I think there are reasons I could go on about why this team didn't work, and I'm sure you could do the same for the Counter-Strike team. And they're very idiosyncratic kind of reasons.
Yeah, for sure.
Acho que meados de 2017 a gente tinha um cenário de Rainbow Six bastante competitivo, né? Com times brasileiros se despontando no mercado global. Eu diria que ali para o mês de novembro, dezembro, um dos times que eu gerenciava, que foi a base do time para Team Liquid. E foi muito interessante porque, apesar de ter outras organizações globais, acho que a nossa decisão de ficar com a Liquid foi quase que instantânea. Eu me lembro que a primeira reunião tava eu e o Zig, falando aqui pelo time no Brasil, né? E do lado da Liquid tava o Vitor e a Brittany. E eles estavam falando sobre, obviamente, a vontade deles de entrar no mercado local, de que eles tinham visto o resultado do time, que o jogo era muito popular no Brasil e que eles tinham um projeto de longo prazo e que eles gostariam de fazer uma oferta para que a gente vestisse a camisa da Liquid a partir de 2018. E aí, na quinta-feira, se eu não me engano, o Vitor chamou a gente para mais uma reunião. E nessa reunião, ele fez uma coisa que acho que foi o que ganhou a nossa preferência pela Liquid 100%. Basicamente dizendo, olha, ao invés de te dar esse X, a gente vai te dar esse X mais Y. A gente só quer uma extensão um pouco maior de contrato, porque a gente entende que vocês valem mais do que vocês estão pedindo. Isso foi para a gente um choque, porque, obviamente, quando a gente fala com as outras organizações e até mesmo com as organizações locais, normalmente essa negociação sempre é levada muito mais, não no que é justo pelas partes, mas na melhor forma que você tenha de extrair disso o menor custo. E ali acho que mostrou bastante do que a Liquid queria para um projeto de longo prazo e o quão honesto eles eram nas negociações. Então, há quase 8 anos atrás, acima de tudo, olhando para uma organização que a gente sentiu que poderia dar para a gente, e a gente acertadamente conseguiu isso, toda a estrutura que a gente sonhava para poder competir. Naquele momento foi quando a gente sentou e falou assim, pô, a gente tem uma organização internacional aqui com a gente, essa organização internacional, ela está em um único jogo, ela ainda não é conhecida localmente no mesmo nível das organizações nacionais. O que a gente pode fazer para transformar isso ou para tornar isso cada vez mais relevante? Eu acho que esse talvez tenha sido o nosso ponto-chave de desenvolvimento e crescimento no Brasil. Do primeiro encontro de fãs que a gente teve como Team Liquid, a gente teve ali cerca de 800 pessoas numa tarde de sexta-feira, numa loja de computadores aqui de São Paulo na época, e aquilo mostrou para a gente o tamanho e a dimensão que a gente poderia chegar ao longo do tempo, transformando essa marca que a gente agora carregava no peito como uma marca relevante localmente. Então foi muito divertido essa jornada, vamos dizer assim. E a gente hoje expandiu, né? Hoje a gente tem 5 jogos que são endêmicos aqui no Brasil e de, obviamente, resultado para que a gente continue crescendo aí para os próximos 10 anos.
So we entered Brazil when we finally picked up a Rainbow Six team, and I think it started with us wanting to be a part of the Rainbow Six scene. There was a beautiful digital item program that we could be a part of, and then it was about deciding, like, where do we pick up a roster? Is it Europe? Is it North America? Is it Brazil? And at the time, we had a strong presence in Europe. We had a strong presence in North America, and we felt like finally maybe this is the right time and the right moment to pick up a roster in South America. And Brazil was like really great at Rainbow Six. And so this was the time where we felt, okay, let's pull the trigger. This is the game, this is the moment, this is the roster. And you have to get a little bit lucky with your timing. And so I think we found the right guys, the right team, and we made it work. And in terms of Brazil, we've not looked back since.
Yeah, we've taken our playbook and we've replicated in a region where we weren't from. I think that was like the part that felt impossible, which was like, how are we going to do this when neither of us speak Portuguese and none of us know anybody down there and we're not from that area and we want to be a big brand in Brazil? Like, how are we going to pull this off? And kudos to Rafa for being so instrumental in making that happen.
Yeah, I mean, having been to Brazil, the fan base there, it's just out of this world. I mean, I've shared the videos with you when I was in the stadium for Counter-Strike. I think it's Furia against Navi. People cheering, chanting, taking off their shirts, dancing. I mean, it is wild, and it's totally inspirational. Like, I think that's what sports fandom is all about, and it's a joy and a pleasure to be a part of this region.
I can see it in the videos. It's infectious. There's like a fervor, you know?
Yeah, it's like impressive. I think it's a Brazilian football culture.
Yeah.
It's just carries over to esports.
What does it mean to last 25 years in a field like esports?
Well, me personally, I have not been in esports for 25 years yet. I would be a very old, okay, not that old. I would not be, okay, wait, let me,
I heard that.
Let me read
That's painful.
Lasting 25 years in esports definitely is nothing to scoff at. I think that staying at the top especially is really hard. You see teams come and go. You see them, go from the top of, the rankings in some games and then just fall off the face of the earth. And I think that Liquid has been at the top for most of its life.
I absolutely did not ever envision Team Liquid turning into the entity or titan that it has turned into, because it was just a small, tightly knit group of people who were friends with each other.
Being around a quarter century like Team Liquid is obviously an incredible achievement. But I also think it's something that I'm coming to accept as something that should almost be taken for granted. Because the way I see it is esports is going a similar direction as regular sports, where if you look at titles like iconic titles like StarCraft, Counter-Strike, Dota, those games have been around for just as long now as well. And I do think at least the archetypes of these type of games, maybe even the game names themselves, will be around for 50 years, maybe eventually 100 years. And we need to have like anchor organizations like TL that also stay and there's continuity. And the way Team Liquid has been run by Victor and everybody that's been there from the early years, I'm not surprised that it's still thriving, just because everybody there's very grounded.
I think lasting 25 years in esports means you made a ton of right decisions, that you really followed your gut, your passion. You busted your ass to put yourself on top. And that's why Team Liquid's last 25 years and has dominated for 25 years.
My favorite memories of being in Team Liquid? There's so many. Getting to live in Los Angeles for a few months, going to the facility every single day, making friends with the coworkers, winning Evo, and having dinner with the team afterwards. And I have to go through and see all the pictures and memories, the Christmas parties, beating Steve in poker at his own house. That was also great.
What?
Really?
I don't think that happened.
Of Team Liquid
That definitely happened.
is in growing esports. It's passion and tradition. And I think that it's never forsaken that. And I think it's very important, especially when esports started growing very quickly. It's something that you can lose sight of very quickly, right? Because there's big investments or there's opportunities or you can branch out in different games. And I've always felt, and I can obviously speak mostly for Victor because he's a good friend of mine. So I've been speaking to him about it for years. But the way he always described it was like, it needs to be a logical step. It needs to fit what Team Liquid stands for, and that comes down to everything, like player types, players that he'll talk to in signing, or games that he'll venture out into, or even like down to logos, right? It needs to represent Team Liquid.
I feel like they've always been a players first organization, an organization that even retired players go back and always look fondly about. And you feel like you always want to be on the right side of history when it comes to how players go back and talk about your past organizations.
Liquid is one of like the Titan esports orgs where they're kind of paving the way towards endemic sponsors and towards the average fan. I think that's also like the main goal of Liquid as well, is we want to be household names for everybody out there that watches esports. So if little Timmy's coming up in middle school, he should know about Team Liquid. And I think that's the goal of the org, is to be that well known and to have fans like all across the world.
So Team Liquid's place in the esports landscape is an interesting one. I don't need to really talk about the championships or winning TI or Counter-Strike or any of that kind of stuff. I think the important part is that Team Liquid has done a lot more than just be a team. I think like Liquipedia is a good example. I think that's a site that started as volunteers and now has become probably the best resource for esports coverage, maybe on the internet. I think that the fans remember the site, even if they're not rooting for the logo. They remember the community, the sense of community and where they started. Kind of legacy of the brand it's important because it's one of the only ones that's been around since the early 2000s. Victor and Steve, they've been there the whole time. So it's kind of hard to compare it to any other brand.
I love video games. I just absolutely love them. I love all kinds. I love playing them. I love watching them. I love competing in them. I love watching other people compete in them. I love the mastery of video games. I love min-maxing them. I love every genre I can get my hands on. I'm obsessed. So, get to live and breathe an industry that I genuinely love, that I'm passionate about, and build a career in it where I can marry my work and personal interests is very cliche, but it's a little bit of a dream come true for me.
Yeah, turning your hobby into your job, basically, and being able to pursue that with passion. So besides like just the fact that I enjoy the competition and I enjoy seeing us play in all of these tournaments and watching and building a business, that definitely is like the main goal. But while we are pursuing that, I definitely also really enjoy that we get to do a little bit of good in this world, that I feel good about the way we treat our players, the way we treat our staff, and maybe in an ever-challenging world, be a little bit of a small positive in our communities where we can.
Couldn't agree more. Where are we in 25 years? I hope that we've more than satisfied our shareholders, all of our stakeholders, which involves all of our fans and community. And I hope that we have a lot of fun along the way.
Historically, I've never really thought too much about like, okay, when I founded Team Liquid, like where are we going? Ultimately, I'm just here for the path, for the ride. I'm very grateful that I'm allowed to lead the company together with you. And I hope that we can do it for another 25 years.